So welcome everyone to the Temple of Consciousness. I'm Ava. Please come in. What I'm doing right now here is I'm continuing my little series I started last month, giving you information about the symbols of the Major Arcana. I've done 3 already: the Fool, the Magician, and the High Priestess. So we are now here at the Empress. So far, through the interpretation of the symbols of the first 3 cards, it certainly should become evident that what we have here is a genesis, like in the Bible, a story about the creation, how it was created, in what order it was created, and for what purpose it was created. Here we have in the Empress the very last stage of that Genesis, that story of creation. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down the symbols in the card. So if we look at it closely now, you see when we look into the card how many beautiful symbols there are in it. She's dressed in a gown covered in pomegranates. She wears a crown of 12 stars. She holds an orb in her right hand. She's leaning on a pillow, and she has a scroll behind her. And we see a beautiful heart-shaped shield as a part of the throne with the symbol of Venus in it. And we have a beautiful river cascading down to the Empress. Behind her we have a very fecund, rich, beautiful garden. The Empress represents ultimately all of creation, the entire cosmos, every plant, every animal, every rock, every living being is represented by the Empress. First of all, let's pick out one symbol. Let's pick out the symbol of that orb that she's holding in her right hand. That orb represents her power, her dominion, her rulership over her domain, over her creation. It's in her right hand, symbolizing that her creation is good. If we notice then that shield that's a part of her throne, that shield is shaped like a heart with the symbol of Venus in it, the symbol of love. This means that all of creation, including you and me, the animals, the rocks, the trees, the stars, are a product of God's love. And so all of creation is good. It comes from God. If you remember in the Bible, after each element of creation was made, it was declared to be good. And the declaration of the goodness of creation is symbolized in that heart and the symbol of Venus. Her gown is embroidered with pomegranates. The same pomegranates that we saw in the previous card in the High Priestess before the creation, when the forces of creation were binding and alchemically coming together. And so that symbol was behind the High Priestess. It was still in her imagination, still a part of the veil, the hidden imaginative elements of God. Here, they're on her gown. She wears it. She displays it. Pomegranates are used as a symbol of fertility because they have so many seeds and they can't be counted. There are so many seeds in a pomegranate. So it's used here to symbolize her immense fertility, as is the pillow behind her. That's a pregnancy pillow. So she is eternally pregnant, always gestating new life, new forms. Now, if we move on, we'll see her crown of stars. We are literally crowned with the 12 constellations. There are 12 stars, and those constellations are there permanently fixed above us to show the majesty of the heavens, of the heavens above us. They are fixed in their course and are there to give signs of the power and the beauty of God's love. And then we go into the symbol of the scroll, which again we had that same scroll in the High Priestess, but the High Priestess had it on her lap, whereas now it's behind her and we can only see a little bit of it because the scroll represents knowledge, reason, wisdom, the thought, the idea, the genius of God, which when it was in the High Priestess's lap, it was at the forefront. It was used in order to create the ultimate reality that we live in. But now it's hidden. It symbolizes that the knowledge of the creation can be understood, but it isn't all apparent. We have to actually look for it inside of nature, examine it through the scientific process. We can discover how the cosmos was made. That knowledge is there for us to glean, for us to uncover. And then finally, we have that river, that same river that we saw again in the high priestess. The high priestess's garment, her gown, turned into that river that gathered or swirled at the foot of the high priestess. Now that same river is flowing through the garden behind the Empress and is moving directly in front of the Empress. So what we have in that, I like to remind you of Heraclitus, who said that we can never step into the same river twice. It's always changing. It's always moving. You cannot, from one second to the next second, enter the same reality. It's always different and moving. Change is endemic to creation. The ever-moving flux of creation is represented by that river. Oh, and there are, of course, wheat stalks growing in front of us, fed by that river. That simply shows the enormous abundance of creation, that there is no end to the supply. It will always be replenished. Always the food for the creatures that are created will always be made. So, if we look at it, stepping back, it's simply saying that all of creation, everything that we see and experience, comes from the love of God. If you see this card in your reading, it's all about love, all about fertility, all about creation, and how you can become sovereign over your own life. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for coming. All my love.